Hello and welcome to Applicata Biblia. My name is Mark. Thank you so much for stopping by as we get a little bit into God's Word. We are continuing in the series, A Walk Through the Bible. We are in Lesson 42, Book 3 of the series. We are in the era of the kings. And now we've covered a few already. We're going through this pretty quick. So if you want a deeper study, I just suggest you read it. If you have any questions, post them in the comments section below. Maybe we can answer them for you. Maybe we can't. There are some things that happen in the Kings that are kind of out of sequence. Like the story of Ahab covers quite a bit of the king's narrative that we're not even covering right now. And a lot of things happen with that king. And I think basically God is just showing the degradation that happens when you turn away from him. That doesn't go unnoticed, right? Same thing happens with Judah when they turn away from him. So we are going to be reading from 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 25 through 29 to start with. We're going to be talking about Ahaziah. Ahaziah is another evil king. And again, basically that just means somebody who essentially practices idolatry, endorses idolatry, and supports it to the point where they're building things for it. And they lead the people down that path. Now, as we talked about last time, we see that there's this alliance with the king of the north, Ahab. Not a good king. And the Israelites actually help this king and Jehoshaphat fight their enemies. And so they kind of unite that way. So in that sense, it's good that they can fight together. But if you have to give up on God to do it, that's not a good idea. That's a terrible idea. Come on, really? The Christian tells you that, no, I'm not going to be unequally yoked with somebody who's going to make me go against God. Now, Jehoshaphat was able to stay away from that. Unfortunately, Ahaziah is not. Now, his mother is named Athaliah. And unfortunately, that's not a good thing because she is actually related to Ahab, if not his daughter. It depends on how you read it and some of the versions. I think it's his daughter. And some say it's Omri's daughter. Some versions say it's Omri's daughter, but Omri's daughter could just mean granddaughter. The point is, all the evil that's going on in Israel is now finding its way into the kingdom of Judah, right into their house. And that was one of the dumbest things, unfortunately, that Jehoshaphat let happen. Even though he did so many other good things. But that's really unfortunate. So that's going on right now. One of the questions I asked is, do you think a king should be a king at 22 years old? And obviously, in today's day and age, probably not. No. But, back then, a 22-year-old young man, they were looking at his fighting ability and his ability to take instruction from the wise people within the nation. Every king has his wise men that he would consult with. So, it's kind of hard to compare back then with today. Okay, so we're going to look at 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 through 6. And we're going to look at a queen, and her name is Athaliah. Now, Athaliah, okay, this is the descent of evil that we see that infiltrated the house of Judah, unfortunately, from Israel, because of Ahab's influence. So Athaliah is either the daughter of, I think she's the daughter of Ahab. Now, I could be wrong. Again, it depends on what you read there. But anyway, and she was given as a wife, right? to Jehoram. And so Athaliah, once Ahaziah dies, she takes it upon herself to kill any of the male siblings that might take the throne after Ahaziah, after Ahaziah. And she kills his brothers so that she can take the throne. Well, there was one little 1-year-old kid named Joash, and he was hidden by a woman named Jehosheba, who's the sister of Ahaziah. And she hid him in a closet while they were looking for him. I mean, that's the intrigue about this. They're like in the next, right next to them. And she saves this little boy. And she takes them and hides him. This guy named Jehoiada. He's a priest. And they call the rulers together for a meeting. After the 6 years, Jehoiada calls these people together. They're leaders and rulers. And it was obvious they were ready to get rid of Athaliah. And he cuts a covenant between Jehovah and this little young 7-year-old boy. And he cuts the covenant between the boy and the people that they would follow God. This is like, when you read this, you're just like, oh good, something good's happening. And he basically rededicates Judah to become a godly nation. So the first thing they do is they go out and they dispatch Athaliah and get rid of her. They get rid of her Baal priest, and they destroy all the Baal idols that she had instituted in the land. Baal is one of the bigger issues in the region here. People love that god for some reason, even though he's a useless god. Joash institutes this special fund to maintain and repair the temple. And why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because that tells us that when these people come in who serve these other gods, right, these idols, inevitably, every single time, what happens is they neglect God's temple. And neglecting the building itself is one thing. But on top of that, they're not worshiping God. A lot of times what happens, they end up taking things from the temple and putting it in their own temple and desecrating the holy things that God made holy. God made these things holy. And so there's just this total disrespect for God and for his worship. But under Joash, who's 7 years old, these things are changing. Now, those people who are working on the temple, and it's important to see this, were faithful, and they would hire people to do this work, and they trusted these people to the point where they didn't audit them, they didn't make sure that they were wasting money or pilfering or anything like that. There was great trust put in these people. It's important to know that, simply because this work was bringing people back to God into this spirit of trusting one another and doing the right thing. So this, as a sub-story, this guy Hazael of Syria, he comes to attack Jerusalem, and Joash pays him off, and the guy leaves. And then Joash is killed by his servants. Okay? Joash was a young king, and he died young, about 47, yet he accomplished a lot of good. How was a 7-year-old able to do this? Well, obviously, he's 7 years old. He doesn't know what he's doing. But you've got guys like Jehoiada who are helping him, and all the wise people gathered around him and protected him, obviously, and was advising him what he should be doing. Okay, 1 Kings 14, 1 through 22. We're going to talk about Amaziah. Amaziah. Now, Amaziah is a good king, so he saw his dad, Joash, a good king, and he's a good king. And one of the first things that he does is he avenges his father's death. The people who had him killed, the servants within his own house, he has them dispatched right away. So he strikes Edom successfully, right? And this is a problem this is a pride problem. As good as a king as he might be, he has a pride problem. But he goes to Edom, he strikes it successfully, and then he picks a fight with Israel, with Jehoash, this other king called Jehoash. And Jehoash goes, you're a nobody, what do you think you're doing? And instead of listening to the warning not to fight, Amaziah goes ahead and he's defeated. And Jehoash actually invades Jerusalem. That is like, dude, you way overplayed your hand. So as good as a king as he was, because he sought after God, he obviously didn't ask God, should I go against Israel? Because God would have told him no. So that's what we're looking at right now in the kingdom. And we're going through really quickly here. We're going through a lot of years very quickly. We see some kings come up. They're good. Some kings are not good. And they obviously, it's all predicated on whether they are following God or not. It's all predicated on the fact that, on whether or not they have a love for God. And, it's the same thing for us today. What is our love for God? And, are we keeping him centered in our lives? Jesus brings this to the forefront in everybody's minds, keeping God centered. He's the one who brings it to that succinct point that is what God expects from us. Love him with all our heart, mind, and soul. Okay, so Jehoash takes that plunder from Jerusalem, from the temple treasury, and it is strikingly a terrible thing. It shows the weakness, really, on this king. Amaziah is killed like his dad from within his own ranks, and his son Azariah is made king. Okay, so why does Amaziah pick a fight with Israel? Well, he picked a fight because he thought, I just beat Edom, I must be strong. He got a big head. Okay, Azariah or Uzziah, it depends on which reading you're looking at. So, Chronicles calls him Uzziah. So Uzziah or Azariah, this is in 1 Kings 15, 1 through 7, is a good king. That's good. We've got 3 good kings in a row. That's a good deal. But he also kind of gets this big head, and God strikes him with leprosy. And you find that in Chronicles 26. He's very godly. He reinforces Judah. He amasses this gigantic army. He's a great warrior king. But he becomes arrogant, and he goes into the temple and burns incense. And it's like, you're not a priest, you're a king. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to know better, right? The king is supposed to he's supposed to know the law. Obviously, even if he did know it, he did something he wasn't supposed to do. So God strikes him with leprosy. And that's just, like I say, we keep seeing this over and over again. Every one of these kings, at one point, it seems like, even if they're good, they all of a sudden do something really dumb. And this is a repeated theme we see throughout all scriptures. It's like, people are good, and they might be really good toward God, but at some point, end up messing up, end up falling short of the glory of God. And this is what Paul addresses when the New Testament comes around. Okay, thank you so much for listening. We've only got a couple more of these in this part of the series. We're going to finish up the Kings of Judah. Thanks so much for stopping by.